So let's start by defining a few important terms. And
before we move into the statistics, it's important to understand a few terms researchers use. First, excessive use usually refers to spending more than 3 hours per day on social media platforms. Many studies use this threshold because risk begin increasing noticeably after the fact. Second, you see the term dose response. This means that the amount of exposure increases, the effect becomes stronger. In this case, more hours on social media are associated with a higher risk of depression symptoms. Finally, depressive symptoms don't necessarily mean someone has clinical depression. Researchers measure symptoms such as persistent sadness, low energy, hopelessness, difficulty concentrating, and losing interest in activities that were once enjoyed. These symptoms are often assessed using standardized questionnaires such as the PHQ-9. Understanding these definitions will help us interpret research more accurately.
and so, based on what she said, based on what she said, these are some of the key terms, as you can see. So the excessive use, dose response, and this depressive symptoms, right? So social media causing mental health problem, right? Research now suggests that the relationship between social media and mental health is not simply correlational, but can also be causal. Correlation means two things occur together. Right? And means one thing can and causation means one thing can directly contribute to the other. So scientists have investigated this using several types of studies, including natural experiments. So the natural experiments like maybe you'd say, okay, just casually going through social media on a daily basis, they just have a normal consumption of social media. And randomized control trials and the Facebook rollout study. So together these studies provide evidence that increased social media use, which can directly contribute to higher levels of depression and anxiety. And researchers have identified the three major mechanisms behind these effects. So some of the mechanisms you can see right here. So displacement of sleep, late night blue light and cognitive arousal behavior, REM cycles, feeling mood vulnerabilities, mechanism to upward social comparison, algorithmic creation triggers feelings of inadequacy, envy, and FOMO. Mechanism 3, algorithmic feedback loops. So, internet rewards exploit the developing adolescent prefrontal cortex driving compulsive validation seeking. And some of these things increase youth depression or increase youth anxiety. So, going back to social media and how it affects your mental health, these are just some of the mechanisms, but there's many more. And some of the ways how social media raises depression risk. So after 1 hour, going on to 2 hour, going on to 3 hour, it gradually goes higher and higher based off of the overall consumption. But normally until you just kind of get sense of high from it. So, yeah. So these effects are particularly powerful during adolescence because the brain's brain region involved in emotional regulation, impulse control, and decision making are still developing. Right? So when you're like a teenager or when you're in your early adulthood, you just basically seek more attention. So not all, but yeah. So as a result, teenagers may be more vulnerable to the psychological impacts of social media than adults. Right?
Research shows that depression risk increases as social media use increases. Meta-analysis has found approximately a 13% increase in depression risk for every additional hour of social media use per day. This means the relationship isn't all or nothing risk, gradually increases as usage increases. Studies also show that spending more than 3 hours per day on social media is associated with roughly double risk of experiencing depression symptoms compared to lighter users. One study found that about 25.9% of heavy users reported significant depressive symptoms compared to over 9.5% of low users. A large 2025 study published in JAMA followed more than 11,000 young people over time. Researchers found that teens who increased their social media use later showed more symptoms of depression. This is important because it suggests that social media use came before the symptoms, rather than simply occurring alongside them.
Alright, so why our generation is different? Regarding social media in today's generation and today's so why our generation is different? So many people assume every generation faces the same challenges. But today's generation has grown up in a very different environment. So why I would say that today's generation is different because as you can see there is been evolution in terms of technology and AI and all sorts of stuff. So today's generation is kind of is like very different than any other generation because it's going more towards tech, going more towards all sort of innovative ideas regarding the AIs and school and all that. So the previous generation certainly experienced this bullying and social pressure. However, when schools ended, most social interactions ended too. All provided a break from peer judgment and social competition. So from Gen Z and Gen Alpha, smartphone and social media are available almost constantly. Social interaction continues throughout the day and night, notification messages, posts, and videos created a non-stop stream of social information. The algorithm also continuously shows content designed to capture attention, and this often includes highly curated images and videos that represent the best moments of people's lives. So, from like an Instagram post, someone is going out gym and they wanted to show you that they're over a hotel or whatever they might be. So, that's an example. And so, constant exposure to these highlighted videos can intensify comparison and feeling of inadequacy. At the same time, adolescents are still developing the peripheral cortex, the part of the brain responsible for impulse control. Right? And planning, decision making, because the systems are still maturing. Young people may be especially vulnerable to addictive design features and emotional influences. So research suggests that girls are often affected more strongly, particularly regarding body image, appearance-based comparisons, and social relationships. These factors help explain why researchers believe today's youth face unique mental health challenges that previous generations did not experience on the same scale.
Why countries ban or regulate social media? Several countries have decided that the evidence is strong enough to justify government action. Australia introduced one of the world's strictest policies by implementing an under 16 social media ban in late 2025. Millions of underage accounts have reportedly been removed as platforms attempt to comply with the law. France has also advanced legislation aimed at restricting social media access for younger teenagers, with stronger enforcement measures expected in the coming years. The UK has taken a somewhat different approach by focusing on stricter age verification systems, online safety regulations, and restrictions on certain platforms for younger users. These governments are not claiming that all social media is harmful. Instead, they argue that developing brains require additional protection from risks such as addiction, cyberbullying, sleep disruption, exposure to harmful content, and mental health effects associated with excess use.
And so moving on to Facebook rollout study, right? One of the most or the strongest pieces of evidence that social media can affect mental health comes from what researchers call Facebook rollout study. You can see campus A, campus B, Facebook alerts, spike in mental distress. So campus B, no Facebook yet. That's in 2004, there was no Facebook. So normal mental health in 2006, Facebook's alert, and then it starts to spike mental distress. Okay, so when Facebook first launched, it wasn't available to every college at the same time. And different universities gain access at different points. This created a natural experiment that allowed researchers to compare students who have Facebook with similar students who did not yet have access. The results were striking. After Facebook became available on campuses, severe depression increased approximately 0%, and with severe anxiety increasing about roughly 20%. So researchers then concluded that social comparison played a major role, and students were suddenly being exposed to constant updates, constant comparison, showing their peers, social activities, achievements, their daily lives, friendships, and success. So many began overstimulating, or is this overestimating? I must be right. So overestimating how happy and successful others, which led to feeling of inadequacy and low self-esteem. So this study in particular, so this study is particularly important because it provides evidence that social media is still contributing to worsening mental health outcomes rather than simply finding a correlation of time of Facebook introduction, allowing researchers to observe changes that occur after access to media. So students compare themselves more negatively to others, and social media distorted perceptions of peers' life. So what this means is that when students had social media or when it first came out, it's like they found a ground where they said, okay, I post my life, and maybe some people somewhere in this world just probably envious of what they have. Because you know, some people are like that, they're probably jealous because they say, okay, you're living the best life and have all these things and I'm just here decomposing, you know. Some people just look at people and just want to be bad mind for no reason and cause one more problem and you know that kind of also cause people to be separated, like because when people are just like our country in war, yeah. So like we as a whole probably make new campus and they have the same uniform and same everything, but okay, they don't act like they're from the same school, same uniform, same ground. They act like they're from if you see people walking here and walking here, they act like they don't know each other because they bad mind each other based off of the life that they live and you know that just causes people to be conflicts and all sorts of stuff. So there's actually a story of a young man that was going to prom and he had a stack of money in his hand, right? He had a stack of money in his hand and he brought it to prom, had it in his hand, started taking pictures and flexing it and all sorts of stuff, right? And you know what happened? Who can guess what happened? The Arabian words, is that the extent of what you thought happened? He brought us big stack of money, you know, big stack of money. No, normal stuff, big stack of money. Started to post it online and on social media. And on the very same night that young man posted that picture, unfortunately, he died because people started looking on you for that he had a lot of money and started being admired and jealous. The same very night, held him up, robbed him, and killed him. It's been all over social media and it's very unfortunate. But sometimes I wonder why people put themselves in that position in the first place. Because you know, people really and truly just different kind of needs. So they will actually go to that thing to get what they want and it's unfortunate. So yeah, that's an example of what social media actually is. It's not like it happens every day, but that's like the extent of which you can avoid. Right? So to conclude, social media can be useful. Right? Social media is a useful tool of communication, entertainment, learning, and staying connected with friends and family. However, the research we looked at today shows the excessive use is linked to higher rates of depression, anxiety, poor sleep, and lower self-esteem. Studies suggest that these effects are not just a coincidence. So social media can contribute to health problems through constant comparison, fear of missing out, disrupt sleep, and reward systems that encourage compulsive use. Because teenagers' brains are still developing, they are not vulnerable to these effects like adults. They are more vulnerable to these effects other than adults. So the body of a teenager rather than up to adult is like, you know, yeah, probably just still developing. Some teenagers are still very mature, but you know, as I said, just overall. Okay? So one reason why countries such as Australia, France, and the UK are introducing stronger regulations and protections for young users, the key takeaway is that social media itself is not the enemy. but how much and how often we use it. Right? So being aware of this risk and using social media in a balanced and intentional way, we can enjoy its benefits while protecting our mental health. Thank you very much. Any questions? Go first. Uh, you, thank you.
It's interesting that um, the social media example that you have used, that used campus, all the way back in 2004, 2006, that's about 20 years ago. I guess we use Facebook because that was probably popular social media at the time. Um, is it that your social media outlets are today less intrusive, less than it was 20 years ago, or yet for us to study your research that it's probably even more so now than it was 20 years ago. TikTok was around 20 years ago. It's probably around 20 years ago. Is it that these are less causing less impact on the government rates or what's
Alright, so in terms of now, compared to back then, I would say it's more impactful because yeah, I would like to
So it's more because people put more of their lives on social media now.
so she said that she should have people put more of their lives on social media than before, but also because apps like Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, they all started off well at first, but after a period of time, you know that people is going to start to want more and more and more and start to branch out into other things, right? So TikTok, after I started off to be a dancing app, anybody knew that is actually meant to be a dancing app. I guess a dancing app for people to be themselves and just release all of their positive dancing and all that. But after a period of time, it's been used to target people, influencers, by people that were bad men. And as a result of TikTok, because people go online on TikTok, right? Everybody knows that. People go online on TikTok in their homes, in their street, and all of that, and sometimes they're not really aware of the audience that they have. And because of the same bad money and the same people that are probably jealous of them, they try to trap and find out where they live. And some of those influencers just ended up, the same thing that happened to the young man. So it's probably worse no by the apps, not that the apps is the problem, but it's just the people that turn the app into that kind of platform. So, at the end of Instagram, people that's like the most toxic app. Like I have stopped using Instagram completely. And